Okay, so I want to wrap up with some discussion about the role of spirituality in recovery from burnout and preventing burnout. I don't like prefacing myself. I talk to a lot of professionals who don't really appreciate or understand the distinction between spirituality and religion. I am not a religious person. I tried that. I was raised in that. Of the many ways in which I'm screwed up, I happen to be a minister's son. And what religion promised was never something that I experienced. And if religion works for you, that's awesome. By all means, take comfort and grow in those traditions and rituals and sacraments. For the rest of us, one of the most liberating experiences of my life, I had a friend who was a member of AA, and she shared with me an adage that religion's for people who are afraid to go to hell, and spirituality is for those of us who have already been there. So I have been there, and what I've learned about hell is that it's a place I can only go alone. And hell is a place where children suffer. Hell is a place where people experience trauma. It's a place where people feel depressed and hopeless and completely alone. And so, what I've learned is I can't go to hell if I keep myself in the company of good people. And connection really is the basis for what I believe and practice spiritually. I'm not a person to do meditation. I'm not a person to commune with nature. If those work for you, great, do them. For me, I need to have misfits in my life. I need to have people who understand me, people who have similar experiences, or maybe very different experiences, but the same perspective. What I've learned is that if you've been through any kind of hell, you have the capacity to understand other people's. You may not be able to relate to it, but you can understand enough. So the more that I keep myself in that company, the more everything just kind of naturally works better for me, healthier for me. I've joked for a long time that if I could find the right brunch spot and the right group of people to meet with every week, I would gladly call it church. So, uh, my best suggestion for spirituality is a song by the Indigo Girls. The song is Closer to Fine. And that song affected me because it pointed out how self defeating or self limiting it is to try to understand God or the universe or whatever we care to call it. I really don't have the capacity to understand how the four-cylinder engine in my car works, much less how some great deity in the sky works. So instead of trying to understand the universe, I try to experience it. I talk to it and I notice the things that are put in my life. I notice the amazing people that I wish I was so clever that I went out and found them, but I didn't. We just crossed paths. And I like to think that there's something that creates that. And in the work that I've done with survivors and with people in addiction recovery, recovery from eating disorders, self harm, all of the ways in which people like me tend to destroy ourselves, what I've noticed is there is something, it brings us together. And so the story I usually tell comes from the old animated special of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Specifically, part of that story is the Island of Misfit Mascots, and that's us, toys or people who see themselves as broken, who see themselves as undesirable, and we come together and we make families. And that type of connection is what I do believe in very strongly. And I get to be the person to my friends, my employees, my supervisees that I always needed. And in return, I get to be that person to me. And I get to experience the joy, frankly, of knowing people who are on a path to recovery, who are getting better, and I get to be a work in progress. So I hope that we'll expand this conversation. There's going to be a lot more coming to the site. Please email me, share with me your experiences around compassion fatigue or burnout or moral injury, and let's expand this conversation so that we can make connections between us. Thanks.